maybe I will also make a red deck where I can also put this card in. Welcome back everyone, welcome with another casual MTG Deck Tech, and you guessed it, we're going to talk about reds, and today we're going to jump straight into the deck tech. For the mana base we play 20 swamps, and for the creature base we play 40 plague rats. That was it. Great deck, keep it casual and see you next time. Okay, this was just a small joke. Of course, we at casual MTG Decks, we go a lot deeper, so let's dive into the new deck. For the mana base we play 40 swamps, and for the creatures we play 40 relentless rats. Okay, enough with the crazy jokes, let's dive into the real deck. We play 20 swamps and 40 rat colonies. Keep it casual and see you next time. Bye! Welcome back to the casual MTG Deck Tech. This time it's for real, and of course we're going to talk about reds today. We are going to build a mono black red deck, and I worked a lot on this build, and in the end it's a really cool and surprisingly also quite good deck. If you like my content, you can subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification, leave a comment below if you like to win some vouchers from our good friends at Card Market. And now we are going to jump straight into this scary red deck.
Where Willard ended, Ben begins.
As always, let's start with the land base. Let's start with the lands. We play 16 swamps, and if you play a red deck, of course, you need to be in the sewers. So you can find a lot of sewer drawings in Guilds of Ravnica, for example, or any of the Ravnica sets, and I found this cool image from Kaladesh. For the other lands, I play one Mortuary Mire to get some creatures, some rats, back out of your graveyard and on top of your library. There's a newer card called Witch's Cottage, which does almost the same thing, but it's a swamp. And then there's Barren Moor, a really good card for a mono black deck. It's a land that you can cycle away if you don't need it, so I really like playing those cycling lands. Of course, if you have a big rat, you want to sneak it through, and you sneak it through using the Rogue's Passage. And of course we play the Swarm Yard. This will be your first investment into the deck, because the deck is budget, but there are two cards. Well, there are a few cards that cost just a little bit more, but we stay around $20 or 15 euros nonetheless. And now we go into the sewer and we find ourselves some rats.
Rats. They are watching and waiting. Rats. Their time has come.
So for the creatures, we play two Typhoid rats. Just a 1/1 with Death Touch. I play one Burglar Rat. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Then I play a Nezumi Bone Reader, and the important thing here is that I can pay one black mana and sacrifice a creature. Target player discards a card, and I can only play this as a sorcery, but sacrificing a creature is actually more important than that my opponent will discard a card. And you'll find out why a little bit later. I also play one Ruin Red, 1/1 with Death Touch that also exiles a card from an opponent's graveyard when it dies. Then of course I need to play Red Colony. No, I'm not going to play 40 Red Colonies, but I'm going to play 6 of them. Because it's a really offensive creature, and especially with Rogue's Passage and some other rats, it could get huge. I also want to stay on flavor and play a sinuous vermin. Because who doesn't want a red that becomes monstrous in a red deck, right? And then, of course, no red deck is complete without maybe one of the most broken reds ever built, a pack red. This card was a staple in tournament Magic during the time of Terros and Ravnica, and I remember playing against it. It's just horrible. It keeps multiplying by discarding cards. It's such a strong card and it's not even that expensive anymore. I remember it was about 5-6 euros back in the day. Now you can find it for not even $1 or €1. So it's still a strong card. Pack red 2 times in my deck. Talking about strong reds, the crypt reds were just reprinted in Modern Horizons and they are extremely good. It's actually a red and a sweeper and it could also deal damage to a player. So great card. I included 3 of those red-eyed monsters. The following red is our little splinter from the turtles in our deck. It's called Marrow Gnawer. Whew. Oh, this is a tough one. Take 1. It's called Marrow Gnawer. It's a legendary creature, red rogue, and when it's on the battlefield, all reds have fear, and this means they can only be blocked by black creatures. And this guy also has tap, sacrifice a red, put X 1/1 black red creature tokens into play, where X is the number of reds you control. So you can make a bunch of reds by sacrificing 1 red. Super cool card and it's on team as well. These were all the reds, now we have some support. Of course we need to play a Piper of the Swarm. Because when it's on the battlefield all your reds have menace. You can tap it for 2 mana and create a red, or you can tap it and sacrifice 3 reds. You have to pay 4 mana to do this, but you can gain control of target creature. Great flavorful design, this Piper of the Swarm. It's like the cartoon of the red catcher. No, wait, we have the red catcher later, never mind. Where there are reds, there is also a witch. So I play 1 Shittering Witch. It also comes into play with a red and you can sacrifice a creature and to have another creature gain -2. So also here a nice sacrifice effect on this card to destroy some other creatures. For 5 mana, already a more expensive card, I play an Ogre Slumlord, and when another non-token creature dies, you may put a 1/1 red creature token into the battlefield, and all reds you control have Death Touch. So you are already noticing I have a lot of sacrifice effects, and with the Ogre Slumlord this works great because you can create even more reds. And who doesn't want more reds? We already talked about the Piper, but we also have the red catcher in our deck. This is a 4/4 ogre with fear, and at the beginning of your upkeep you may search your library for a red card, reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So a great tutor to find the best red in your deck. And I often go searching for a crypt red or a pack red. These 2 are mostly the best reds in our deck. And if your opponent has like a really big creature, you can just find a Typhoid red with Death Touch to kill it when it's blocking. So a really cool on-team card, red catcher. I play 2 of them in my deck. The last creature I'm going to talk about is this guy, the Patron of the Nizumi. Why is this a great card? Well, it's a 6/6 for once, and whenever a permanent is put into an opponent's graveyard, that player loses 1 life. And this card also has Red Offering. It means that you may cast this card anytime you can cast an instant by sacrificing a red and paying the difference in mana cost between this and the sacrificed red. And the mana cost also includes the color. So you can play it as a surprise effect and you will sacrifice a red while doing so, which is handy for our next cards. So these were the creatures, and you have noticed there are already a lot of sacrifice effects. Why, you may think? Well, we play a pretty strong sacrifice team in our deck. Let's have a look at some sacrifice cards. Vampiric Rites only cost 1 mana, it's an enchantment, and for 2 mana you can sacrifice a creature, gain 1 life and draw a card. So when you have a lot of rats around, you can sacrifice them to draw more cards. This card is going to be your second investment in the deck. Of course, you can also leave it for a lot of black commander decks because it costs a little bit of money. Dictate of Erebos is the second enchantment in our deck. It costs 5 mana, it has flash, and when a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. And because you have a lot of sacrifice effects, this will be a real headache for your opponent. No red deck is complete without some removal spells, so I included 5 of them in my deck. When you play a lot of swamps, you have to play Defile. It's a great 1 mana instant that kills a lot of creatures, especially later in the game, and I also included 1 Chainer's Edict. Then to stay on flavor with the reds, I think Ultimate Prize and Hero's Downfall are 2 great removal spells for 2 and 3 mana. I want to keep the mana cost low on most of my cards because I want to play a lot of spells in the early game. I also going to include 1 Force of Despair. I love the art of Seb McKinnon, and also a great surprise removal spell because you can pay it by discarding a black card from your hand. The 5 last cards I'm going to talk about support the deck with some card draw and maybe some mana fixing as well. I play 1 Unearth. It can get back a bunch of creatures in your deck. I think you can get back more than 25% of the cards in your deck with this card, and if you don't need it, you can just cycle it away. And I also play 1 Sign in Blood. It's just a cheap card draw effect in black. To honor a little bit the black deck with Pack Rat from the Terros and Ravnica block, I also play 1 Underworld Connections. It's also great on flavor with the red deck. Look at the image, I can already see the rats crawling around in the sewers or in the caves here. Great card draw effect, you really need to try it out and see how good it is. Then I also play 2 artifacts, 1 Bontu's Monument. Black creature spells cost 1 less, and when you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. And I also play 1 Heraldic Banner. Of course, as a color you're going to choose black, and this card will boost whole your team and give you some black mana. This was the deck, now let's head into the power rankings. I've tested this deck a little bit and I was really surprised of the power, so I gave it an 8. It's quite complex to play, and in terms of consistency I gave it a 6. In terms of offense and defense, the deck can play both ways. You can go very aggressive with some red colonies, or you can play a bit defensive, sacrificing reds with Dictate of Erebos out there. You can go really both ways, and that's why it's also a little bit complex to play, because you have to adapt to your opponent. I personally like those decks, so I gave it a fun factor of 7. Now let's look at the meta game review. How does this deck do against other deck types? Versus aggro decks, the deck plays quite well. It has a lot of small dead touch creatures, and it can really win against aggro decks, so I give it a 7. Also against mid-range decks, the dead touch does a lot of work, so also a 7 against mid-range. And because the deck has quite a bit of card draw and it has pack red. I also think versus a control deck it's really good. The only deck I don't want to play against is a combo deck because I don't have a lot to disrupt my opponent or to kill artifacts or enchantments. As always, to finish the deck tech, we'll have a look at some cards you can put out and switch to make the deck different or maybe more budget. The 3 most expensive cards, they cost practically 60% of your deck, are Swarmyard, Dictate of Erebos and Hero's Downfall. So you can easily remove them with, for example, a Barren Moor, an Innocent Blood and another Piper of the Swarm. And this will make your deck about $10 cheaper. So you can scale it down if you want to try it out first and get the more expensive cards in later. Of course, you can put in some different reds. Chittering Reds is a really good red that plays well on team with the Chittering Witch. You can also have a look at Skull Snatcher if your opponent is playing a lot of graveyard spells or graveyard effects. And if you want to put in an unblockable red, then Stronghold Reds are an option. The last 2 cards I want to discuss are Ayara, First of Locthwain, a 3 mana elf noble that also can sacrifice other black creatures to draw a card, and this works of course great with the Dictate of Erebos, and whenever it comes into the battlefield or another black creature enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So really strong card for just 3 mana. And the last card I want to talk about is the Vanquisher's Banner. It costs 5 mana, and when it enters the battlefield you choose a creature type.
Would you believe the other day I saw a rat this big?
Are you through?
No, I mean it. He was this big.
Yes, you're going to choose reds, and those reds will also get +1/+1, and whenever you cast a red creature spell, you draw a card. So great card as well. It's a bit expensive, so you can maybe switch it for 1 red catcher if you like to play it and try it out. So this was the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Try it out, it's really fun to play. And of course you can leave a comment below if you want to leave some suggestions for a next deck. Of course I also put a link of the deck in the description if you want to look at the deck list again. And to end, keep it casual, have fun playing Magic, and see you next time. Bye! Merci Cookie. This is not a rat but a cat.